Most men think a woman will just say yes when the moment feels right. But what they don't know is before she ever gives you her body, she'll say one thing first, and if you miss it, you'll miss everything. There's something about human connection that's both incredibly beautiful and deeply complex. It's not always about what we say. More often, it's about what we don't say. And if you've ever found yourself wondering whether a woman is truly interested in you on a deeper, intimate level, I want you to listen carefully today. See, most men are looking for a grand sign, fireworks, a bold declaration. But real attraction, the kind that leads a woman to want to be physically vulnerable with you, doesn't usually start that way. It starts with a subtle phrase, a soft invitation. Something like, "I feel so safe with you." Now, you may hear that and brush it off. Maybe it doesn't sound like much to you, but that phrase, "I feel safe with you," is often the very first signal that a woman is letting down her walls. That's the first doorway into intimacy, because no woman will share her body with someone she doesn't feel emotionally and mentally secure around. And this is not just about physical safety, it's about emotional safety. It's about feeling seen, heard, understood, without judgment. And here's the thing, when a woman says that to you, it's not always conscious. She may not even realize that she's opening herself up to something deeper. But what she's really telling you is, "I trust you enough to be myself here." That is sacred. That's not a green light for manipulation or performance. It's a calling for maturity. Now, let's not confuse this. Not every woman who says this wants to sleep with you, but every woman who does want that level of intimacy will say something like this first. Why? Because we are not wired to give ourselves to someone who doesn't earn our trust first. You can buy the most expensive dinners, dress in your finest cologne, quote all the smoothest lines from the movies, but if she doesn't feel safe, you'll be stuck on the surface. Here's what most men miss. They rush past the emotional checkpoints. They ignore the moments when she's testing your patience, seeing how you respond to her truth, watching whether you truly listen. Because women notice. They notice if you interrupt, if you dismiss her dreams, if you get defensive when she shares something raw. And if you pass those tests, not with perfection, but with presence, you'll notice her language change. Her tone will soften. Her barriers will start to come down. And somewhere in that space, you'll hear it. "I just feel different around you. I don't know why, but I feel calm when I'm with you." That's not small talk. That's her soul whispering. That's her spirit checking in to see if it's safe to be seen. All the way, and let's be honest, this is not about seduction. It's about alignment. If you're only focused on the destination, you'll miss the beauty of the process. And if you force it, you fail it, because women remember how you made them feel. They remember if you honored their heart before you touched their skin. They remember if you valued their presence more than their body. So if you ever hear a woman say something like, "I feel like I can tell you anything," that's not just flattery. That's your sign. That's your responsibility. And if you handle it with care, intimacy may not be far behind. Not just physical, but emotional, soulful, lasting intimacy. Because in the end, real connection begins not with seduction, but with safety. "I feel safe with you." It sounds simple, too simple perhaps for the magnitude of what it means. But for a woman, those words don't just fall out of her mouth. They rise from a place deep inside, a place she doesn't often give others access to. When a woman says that, she's not making casual conversation. She's signaling to you, maybe unconsciously, that something within her has relaxed in your presence, that something Garda has let go. It's the earliest, most powerful indicator that she's allowing herself to consider a connection beyond the surface. And yet, most men miss it. Most men hear those words and smile, maybe even say thank you, not realizing they've just been handed a key to something rare and sacred. A woman does not feel safe by accident. She feels safe when she has observed consistency, when she's noticed that your words match your actions, when she's tested you in small ways, maybe without realizing it, and you've responded with patience rather than ego. A woman starts to feel safe when she sees that you don't interrupt when she speaks, that you don't rush to fix her, but rather you stay present, that you don't react defensively when she expresses something uncomfortable. Emotional safety is not about being perfect, it's about being available. And when she starts to feel that with you, she'll begin to say things like, I don't know why, but I feel like I can talk to you about anything. That is not flattery. That is a moment of trust in bloom. And if you're paying attention, you'll realize that's the space where real intimacy begins. Not because you forced it, not because you impressed her, but because you created the conditions in which she could breathe. And breathing is the beginning of bonding. A woman who feels safe begins to soften. Her voice changes. Her body language shifts. She leans in. She begins to reveal more than just facts. She reveals feelings. That's when she starts to show you who she really is, and that's where connection truly begins. But here's what most men get wrong. They hear, I feel safe, and interpret it as friend zone material. They assume it's not passion. But what they don't realize is that passion without safety is just performance. It fades. But passion with safety, that turns into fire that doesn't burn out. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come with dramatic displays, but it's lasting, it's honest, it's real. Women don't fall in love with men who try to impress them. They fall in love with men who understand them, who listen deeply, who aren't afraid of silence, who don't rush to touch before they've touched her spirit. And that first invitation, that open door, is, I feel safe with you. If you ignore that, if you rush past it, if you treat it casually, you'll miss the magic. You'll miss the doorway to connection, to affection, to real intimacy. Because before a woman ever gives you her body, she needs to know you can hold her heart. She needs to know that you won't use her openness against her. She needs to know that being vulnerable around you doesn't come with punishment or manipulation. She needs to know that her truth, no matter how messy, will not be met with judgment. That safety is rare, that safety is powerful. And once she feels it with you, something inside her shifts. Something inside her begins to wonder if maybe this time it's safe to be seen. Maybe this time it's safe to surrender. And surrender always begins with safety. A woman's readiness for intimacy is rooted in trust, not timing or appearance. Many men make the mistake of thinking attraction is primarily physical. They assume that if they wear the right clothes, say the right things, and show up at the right time, intimacy will naturally follow. But the truth is, no matter how good a man looks or how charming his words may be, a woman cannot fully engage in physical connection unless her emotional trust has been activated first. This trust isn't built overnight. It is cultivated through repeated experiences where she feels respected, heard, and honored for who she is. She observes how you respond when she's not at her best. She listens closely to how you talk about other women. She notices whether you show up when it's inconvenient. Because for a woman, intimacy is more than a physical act. It's a decision to be vulnerable, to let someone in beyond the surface. And that decision is made only in the presence of consistent trust. Most men rush the process. They focus on the outcome instead of the foundation. They believe attraction can be fast-tracked, but women know better. They feel deeply, they sense authenticity, and they also sense when someone is performing. So when a man tries to impress without being real, she may entertain the interaction, but she won't fully open herself because her body is connected to her heart. Her desire is not separate from her emotional reality. When she trusts you, she doesn't just want you physically, she wants to be close to you. She wants to experience you on a level that goes beyond touch. And that can only happen when she's not afraid of being judged, hurt, or abandoned. Trust is built in the little moments. It's built when you remember the things she said in passing and bring them up later. It's built when you don't minimize her pain, even if you don't fully understand it. It's built when you don't try to dominate her voice in conversation, but instead invite it. Trust grows when you don't make her feel like she's competing for your attention. It grows when she sees that you're the same person in public as you are in private. These things may seem small to you, but to her, they are the blueprint. They are what tell her whether you are emotionally safe, and without that emotional safety, no amount of physical chemistry will matter. A woman may admire your looks, laugh at your jokes, and even flirt with you, but if she hasn't built trust with you, she won't let herself go there. And if she does, it might be in a way that leaves her feeling empty afterward, not because you weren't attractive enough, but because her spirit wasn't in it. Women remember how they feel after the moment just as much as they do during. They remember whether they felt respected, seen, and valued. And that's why real intimacy, the kind that's mutual and soul deep, is always preceded by emotional trust. It's not about how fast things move. It's about how safe she feels as they do. If a woman feels like she's being pushed, she pulls back. But if she feels like she's being seen, like there's no pressure, only presence, her walls start to lower on their own. It's not about convincing her. It's about allowing her to arrive at the decision on her own terms. And when she does, it's not because of something you said once. It's because of who you've consistently been. Trust makes space for her to explore her own feelings without fear. It gives her permission to be soft in a world that often forces her to be guarded. And when a woman feels that kind of trust with you, the question is no longer when, it becomes how deeply she wants to share herself with you. Because real intimacy is not about physical readiness. It's about emotional alignment. And that alignment is born from trust, not timing or tactics. Men who actively listen and respond with emotional maturity build irresistible connections. Listening is more than hearing words. It's about receiving the unspoken, the pauses, the hesitation, the subtle changes in tone. When a woman speaks, she isn't just sharing information. She's revealing parts of herself. The way she talks about her day, her dreams, her disappointments, these are all windows into her inner world. A man who listens with attention is not just taking in facts. He's giving her space to exist fully in his presence. And that space is everything. Most men listen to reply. They wait for their turn to speak. But the man who becomes irresistible listens to understand. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't rush to fix. He leans in, not just with his body, but with his soul. Women know when they're being heard, and they also know when they're being tolerated. There's a difference between being quiet while she talks and actually being engaged in what she's saying. Emotional maturity is revealed in the way a man responds, not just with words, but with energy. Does he get defensive when she expresses discomfort? Does he make space for her truth even when it challenges his ego? A woman pays attention to these things because how you respond to her emotions tells her everything about your capacity to handle her vulnerability. Emotional maturity isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about regulating it. It's about understanding that your reactions have power and choosing to be intentional with them. When a man is emotionally mature, he doesn't try to dominate the emotional space. He doesn't see her feelings as weakness or drama. He holds space for them. He affirms them. He validates without trying to control. And in doing so, he creates a space where she can exhale. That kind of environment is magnetic. It draws a woman in. Because so few men offer it, so few men are calm enough within themselves to be safe for someone else's storm. But when a woman meets a man who can stay steady in the midst of her vulnerability, it changes everything. She doesn't just see him as someone to talk to, she sees him as someone to trust, someone to open up to, someone she can be herself with. This connection goes deeper than charm or good looks. It's not about how many clever things you can say. It's about whether you can stay present when things get real. Can you sit with her sadness without rushing to distract her? Can you hold her silence without forcing conversation? Can you let her feel what she feels without making it about you? These are the things that matter. These are the moments that build connection that's rooted in something more than attraction. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe with you, when she feels heard without judgment and understood without having to over-explain, her guard naturally falls. She begins to associate you with peace. She starts to feel at home in your presence. She doesn't have to shrink, doesn't have to translate herself, doesn't have to fight for space. And that is the foundation of something lasting. Emotional maturity is not about having all the answers. It's about being available in the moments that matter. It's about being steady, not perfect. Women don't need a man who knows everything. They need a man who knows how to be present, who knows how to stay, who knows how to support without trying to save. When a man learns to listen with intention and respond with calm strength, he becomes unforgettable. Because that kind of man is rare. That kind of man is safe. That kind of man makes a woman want to open her heart, her mind, and eventually her body. Not because he asked for it, but because he created the kind of presence where it felt natural, not forced, invited, not demanded, welcomed, not manipulated. The body follows the heart. Real intimacy begins with emotional safety, not pressure. When a woman begins to connect with someone on an emotional level, her body starts responding to the atmosphere that's created around her. It's never just about physical attraction, even though that plays a role. It's about how she feels in your presence. Does she feel calm or anxious, seen or ignored, pressured or respected? These questions are answered not by what you say in a moment of seduction, but by the consistent emotional tone you've set over time. A woman's body opens when her heart feels secure, when she senses no hidden agenda, when she knows she can trust your intentions, when your energy isn't hungry but grounded. Pressure ruins that process. It makes her question her instincts. It causes her to retreat, to close off, to analyze everything you say with suspicion instead of curiosity. But emotional safety is what softens her defenses. It creates a climate where she feels like she can be herself without fear of judgment or consequence. That's the difference between connection and performance. When a woman feels safe, she doesn't perform intimacy, she offers it. She doesn't feel like she's being asked to give something. She feels like she's being invited into something. That shift in energy makes all the difference. Emotional safety is about more than just being kind. It's about being stable. It's about showing up without expectations, about listening without agenda, about holding space without keeping score. Women know when they're being pursued for their body and when they're being pursued for their soul. The former leads to guardedness. The latter leads to openness. And that openness is where real intimacy lives. A woman may be drawn to your confidence, your charm, your presence, but she will only give you her body if her heart feels protected, not just in that moment, but in the ones that follow. There's something powerful that happens when a woman feels emotionally safe. Her language softens, her laughter becomes fuller, her eyes linger longer, her body relaxes in your presence. That's not manipulation. That's natural chemistry unfolding in a space where trust has been built. You didn't have to convince her because she allowed herself to be drawn in. You didn't need to sell yourself because your consistency already did that. That's the result of emotional groundwork being laid without pressure. That's what creates desire that feels mutual instead of forced. Intimacy that begins with pressure almost always leads to regret. Even if she says yes, her spirit may not be in alignment with the moment, and afterward, she will remember how she felt, not just physically, but emotionally. Did she feel safe? Did she feel honored? Did she feel like her presence mattered more than her body? Because those are the questions that shape her memory of the experience. And those are the questions that determine whether she wants more of it or wants to distance herself from it. Men who understand this build deeper connections. They become unforgettable, not because they chased, but because they created safety. They made it easy for a woman to be soft. And that softness is what unlocks the doorway to physical intimacy. Not because she was pressured, not because she was convinced, but because her heart felt at home. That feeling, that warmth, that peace, it reaches her body before you ever touch her. It tells her she's safe to express, to explore, to surrender. And that surrender isn't a loss of control. It's an offering of trust. Trust that her heart will be held. Trust that her body won't be used against her. Trust that who she is beyond the physical matters most of all. And so the truth is simple but powerful. Intimacy doesn't begin in the bedroom. It begins in the atmosphere you create with your presence. A woman remembers how you made her feel long before she remembers how you made her melt. If she trusts you with her heart, her body will follow naturally, not out of obligation, not out of pressure, but out of genuine desire rooted in emotional connection. So don't chase the moment. Build the foundation. Be the kind of man who earns access to her soul, and she will give you the kind of intimacy that goes beyond the surface. Deep, real, lasting. Because when a woman feels safe, respected, and seen, she won't just give you her time. She'll give you her truth. And that, more than anything, is the beginning of something sacred.